So we're going to do an auction. We're going to do 2 versions of this game at least. If you want, we can do more of that. I have plenty of those that I can give to you. So as many as you want. We can do as many rounds of these as you want. And this is your money. I'm just going to put it over here. I'm going to explain the rules of the game. If you've played this before, please don't tell anybody else what it is that's going on over here, because there is something where I want you to put your experimenter hat, both as a participant, as an experimenter. What is going to happen? How you're going to optimize your participation, and what do you think others will do? So it's a little bit of a competition between each and every one of you in order to get this 100 Hong Kong dollars. These are the rules of the first game. And once we clarify these rules, I would ask you to make a prediction in your sheets. You'll see that there's a space for you to say, what do you think the biggest bet is going to be? And what do you think the best strategy is for you in this game? So free money in this class. We're going to do an auction. I don't know if you've ever been part of an auction, but you can get up to 100. You can get 100 Hong Kong dollars. The way that this works is that we have auctions in steps of 10 Hong Kong dollars. So 10 Hong Kong dollars, 20 Hong Kong dollars, 30 Hong Kong dollars. And I start by saying, who gives me a bid? And somebody can say 10 Hong Kong dollars. And then if everything stops over there, then give me 10 Hong Kong dollars and I give back 100 Hong Kong dollars. But of course, somebody else say, I have 10 Hong Kong dollars, who gives me 20 Hong Kong dollars, and then somebody else can overbid. And the highest bid is the one that's going to get the 100 Hong Kong dollars. So we stop when there are no more bids. Okay? Is this clear? So you're free to participate or just watch. You're invited to call out bids in the multiples of 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40. Until no further bidding occurs, at which point the highest bidder will pay the amount and then win the 100 Hong Kong dollar. Okay? So we finish the bidding whenever there's no higher bid. For example, if Christy over here bid 30 Hong Kong dollars and there are no other bids, she pays me 30, I give you 100, so she won 70 Hong Kong dollars. Any questions about this game? A real opportunity for you to win 100 Hong Kong dollars. Okay, think about this. Take a second. Write down your prediction of what the highest bid is going to be. And what do you think your strategy should be in this game before we begin? So we're going to start the bidding. Everybody ready? Lift your faces up, look at me, just so I have a little bit of an interaction. You're all with me? Okay, good. So going for 100 Hong Kong dollars. Who is giving me 10 Hong Kong dollars? 10 Hong Kong dollars? 10 Hong Kong, we got 10 Hong Kong dollars over here. Who's giving me 20 Hong Kong dollars? 20 Hong Kong dollars? 20. 90 Hong Kong dollars. From the gentleman over here. 90 Hong Kong dollars. 100 Hong Kong dollars, overbidding the 90 Hong Kong dollars. $100 for my 100 Hong Kong dollars. Who gives me 110 Hong Kong dollars? 110 Hong Kong dollars? 110? 110? 100 Hong Kong dollars going once. 100 Hong Kong dollars going twice. Sold. 100 Hong Kong dollars for my 100 Hong Kong dollars. Thank you very much. Good. So before we disentangle what just happened over here, how many of you had highest bid in your papers, 100 Hong Kong dollars? Raise your hand. The both of you? So you like coordinated this whole thing. But you didn't know that he's going to do it.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Just so happens that he sits next to you. Okay. So we've got two who wrote 100 Hong Kong dollars. Who else wrote? Did you write? You wrote 90. How many wrote 90? Quite a few of you. How many wrote something that's not 100 or not 90? What did you write, if I may ask? 70? Why 70? Just a number? Okay. Why 90? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Right. But then you started with a bid of 10.
100 right after that.
So he had a strategy. Why did you go directly to 90? Okay.
Hey,
Okay. So he actually took what it is that you thought about and made it into a strategy saying, I'm going to overbid everybody to go for the highest one in order to make some profit, right? Any reflections? What was interesting about this? Do you have some questions for the 10 Hong Kong dollars? Do you have some questions for the 90 Hong Kong dollars? Do you have some questions for the 100 Hong Kong dollars? What questions do you have? Seems like most of us as experimenters did not predict this going all the way to 100 Hong Kong dollars. What do you want to ask? Yes, please, go ahead. Risk what? Oh, so who are the people who are more likely to bid the 100 Hong Kong dollars? Okay, what's your prediction? Like, what's your gut instinct tell you about this? You're gonna say some things about him. What do you think about him and his group? These people who bid 100 Hong Kong dollars? Okay, he was accepting not getting any money. What is he getting out of this then? The thrill of the win? Are you feeling thrilled about winning? 0? Yeah? How thrilled are you? Not thrilled. Yeah. If I'm not getting the 10 Hong Kong dollars or 100 Hong Kong dollars, nobody else is gonna get this, right? How would you frame this? Like what kind of word would you put this under? What do you guys think about this strategy? Both strategies. What do you think about the 90 and the 100? Yeah. A destructive strategy? Why is that? Yeah, nobody wins at all. But what is gained? What is gained by this? Nothing? Mm-hmm. Everybody loses all the money. Is there anything that is gained by forcing nobody to get money? Yeah, please. Avoiding the feeling of losing? Yeah. Sounds like something very selfish that he's doing. Is he doing something else? Yes, please, go ahead. Oh, if I would do the game again, yeah? Okay. So let's say next year there's another professor who is offering you the same bid. Then we run the game again. Then what will you learn from this? What is he teaching us? That's not what you meant. You meant something else. If I am to run this again, tell me again what you meant. There's more leftover? Is that what you meant? Oh, there's more leftover. So maybe I will take the same money and then I will run the auction again. Okay, I see. Is there anything else that we're learning from this situation? Yeah. Do you think you're not rational? Let me just share with you that so far I've been running this for 6 years. It has always ended with somebody saying 100 Hong Kong dollars. Sometimes, and I think this happened last year, I can't remember exactly, somebody said 110 Hong Kong dollars, which really surprised me, and then we stopped it over there. And then we tried to disentangle what that was. But I would say 90-something% of the time, we got to 100 for my 100 Hong Kong dollars. But interestingly, it didn't come up when I asked you what the reasons were. But most of the time, this is framed as we want fairness in our society. We want everybody to feel like they're included. We want everybody to feel like they have the same. So rather than putting this as like a selfish, I want to feel like I've won, or I want to do something. It's more about I want everybody to feel like we've won this together. And I want you to think for a second if there's a different way for you to achieve fairness, or even the selfish goals that you in this kind of game without doing what it is that you did. So sometimes you need to revisit your assumptions. You need to rethink what it is that your strategy is. So you had some prediction. You wrote down these predictions. You had a strategy executed, and then strategy overridden by something else that exposes us to a weakness in some of the assumptions, right? So think carefully what your takeaways are from this game. Now we're going to do a second round. So the prediction that we are going to use the 100 Hong Kong dollars for another round are a good prediction, especially since you have this in your paper. So this is the second game. But in the second game, I'm doing a little bit of a twist. So the second game goes like this. Once again, you have free money. You can get 100 Hong Kong dollars. You're free to participate or just watch. Invited to call out bids in groups of 10 Hong Kong dollars. But whatever the bid is, both the person who wins the bid and the person who gave the second highest bid need to pay me. So that means second highest bidder must also pay. So for example, if we have Christy and Brenda, Christy bet 30 Hong Kong dollars, but then Brenda said 40 Hong Kong dollars, and then we stop. Then Brenda gets the 100 Hong Kong dollars, so 60 overall. But then Christy still needs to pay me 30 Hong Kong dollars without getting anything. So top two bidders need to pay me, but only the top bidder is the person who gets the 100 Hong Kong dollars. Do you understand the rules of the game? Yeah? Take a second, think about the previous game, think about this game, and put down what you think the highest bid is going to be, and then what your strategy should be in this game. All right, are you ready? All right, so we're gonna start the bidding of whatever sum you want, starting from 3, 2, 1. Who gives me a bid for my 100 Hong Kong dollars? A bid, 100 Hong Kong dollars, 10 Hong Kong dollars. Who gives me a bid for 20 Hong Kong dollars? 20 Hong Kong dollars? 20 Hong Kong dollars over there. You still need to pay me 10 Hong Kong dollars. 20 Hong Kong dollars, highest bid. Anybody give me 30 Hong Kong dollars? 30 Hong Kong dollars? 30 Hong Kong dollars over here. Sorry? 40 Hong Kong dollars? 90 Hong Kong dollars. You still need to pay me 40 Hong Kong dollars. 90 Hong Kong dollars going once. Who gives me 100 Hong Kong dollars? 100 Hong Kong dollars. 100 Hong Kong dollars? 100 Hong Kong dollars over there. You still need to pay me 90. 100 Hong Kong dollars for my 100 Hong Kong dollars. Anybody gives me 110 Hong Kong dollars? 110 Hong Kong dollars? 110 Hong Kong dollars coming over here. You still need to pay me 100 Hong Kong dollars. 110 Hong Kong dollars for my 100 Hong Kong dollars. Who gives me 120? 120? 120 Hong Kong dollars? 120 Hong Kong dollars. You still need to pay me 110 Hong Kong dollars. 120 Hong Kong dollars coming over there. Who gives me 130? 130? 130 Hong Kong dollars? So you pay me 110 Hong Kong dollars, you pay me 120, and you get 100 Hong Kong. 130 Hong Kong dollars. You still need to pay me 120 Hong Kong dollars. 130 Hong Kong dollars for my 100 Hong Kong dollars, and you still need to pay me 120 Hong Kong dollars. You give me 140 Hong Kong dollars. 140 Hong Kong dollars. 130 Hong Kong dollars to my 100 Hong Kong dollars, going once, going twice, sorry. 200 Hong Kong dollars for my 100 Hong Kong dollars. You still need to pay me though. Do I hear 210 Hong Kong dollars? No, you're stopping here? She's gonna get this though. You sure? Okay. 200 Hong Kong dollars, going once, going twice. Sold my 100 Hong Kong dollars for 200 Hong Kong dollars and 130 Hong Kong dollars. Thank you very much to all who participated. I'll be collecting this at the end of the session. No need. Waived. It's all waived. No problem. No need to pay the professor. This was really meant for me to give you money rather than the opposite. But I have not lost any money yet doing these two games. How many of you in your papers anticipated going all the way up to 200 Hong Kong dollars as the highest bid? What's the highest bid that you had in your papers? Sorry? What? Say 50? 50, 50, why 50? Fair enough. Okay. So 50 and 40 together is 90. There's still 10, something like that. Okay. Is that what you had in mind? Okay, interesting. At some point, it becomes irrational or doesn't make any sense to go higher. But some people went higher. You went higher pretty fast, right? What did you think about? Yeah, thinking about how much you're going to gain from this. But it could be that she has exactly the same strategy, right? And she could outbid you. And finally, she did. She was willing to pay 100 Hong Kong dollars over my 100 Hong Kong dollars to hurt you, right? In a way, right? So I guess when you refer to illogical, it doesn't make any sense. It's the issue of looking at this from your own perspective rather than considering that there's another person. What did you have in mind paying 200 Hong Kong dollars for that? 100 is the highest bid. You would like to gain a bit? How? You're losing 100, right? And she's losing 130. Yeah, so what's the gain? You can win this game. Okay, interesting, right? Right. So what's your takeaway from this? What did we learn from this little exercise here? How to think about this? Let's raise this. Why do you want to talk to somebody else? Why are you asking this? Perfect. So let's say now that we saw what was happening, what would you say, or any one of you, what is the ideal strategy here? Let's count. Yeah. Let's say 20. Okay. What do you think about his suggestion? You're nodding. Optimal. Yeah. Any downside to this? First of all, let's put it on the table. Why did you not do this to begin with? What was stopping you? Trust. What kind of trust do you need? Yeah. Yeah. What's stopping you from establishing trust? Okay. Wait, do you have, now that we've talked about this strategy, do you think you can establish this trust? There's 20 others here. He's suggesting a strategy, a winning strategy. Everybody can win, not just the professor is going to lose. Hmm. Good point. Yeah, that fits into all your game theory models, right? How to, there's a name for this. Somebody won won a Nobel Prize for this. The Nash equilibrium. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Right. So that's one model, but here there's multiple participants going beyond the two prisoners that are the defection cooperation, this sort of thing. So what does the Nash equilibrium actually predict? You're suggesting a strategy. He's highlighting a problem with the strategy in that he doesn't know everybody here and he doesn't know if he can trust you or the others. Good. Any follow-ups on this? Any suggestions how to optimize this? Wanted to say something? 5 Hong Kong dollars is small. That's a lot of money for just sitting in a classroom, no? Too small? Do you want me to multiply that? Okay, amount is too small, too many participants. You're confused? Wait, do you want 5 Hong Kong dollars or not? If I just give you now 5 Hong Kong dollars, do you want it or not? If you're selfish. Oh, okay. Yes, please. Yeah, but we demonstrated that there's a problem, right? So maybe it is better to cooperate, and he insists on fairness. He wants everybody to, he wants everybody to receive the same amount. So maybe it is possible. What do you think will happen if I rerun this again and give you another opportunity to outbid me? What do you think will happen? Huh? Lose some money. Okay. At what point in time in the second one did I know that I'm going to win money? Me as the professor with the $100. When did I know? What was the second that I knew that I'm going to win some money? In the second game, yeah. Yeah, right. The moment that there's a second bidder, I knew that I'm going to win because it's going to be very, very difficult for people to let go, have to pay me for not getting anything back in return. The higher the cost for that, the more the negative feeling, and the more reason wanting to win this. Good. So if I am to run this again, what would happen? Do you want to run this again? Okay. So let's say that I run this again, and we want to optimize this based on the suggestion over here. What would be the ideal scenario? So I'm saying we're going to start the bid in 3, 2, 1, and then what? What should you do? But like you said, you don't know anybody here, so you need some coordination. You need some trust, right? How to do this? Yeah, he's asking me if we can discuss or not. I did not say that you can't discuss. So you could have tried discussing. Maybe I would stop you. Let's say that you can discuss. Let's say that I did not set the rules. What? So I'm going to say, starting the bid. 3, 2, 1. What do you do? What do you do? Yeah, stand up, stand up, stand up. Everybody quiet. Nobody make a bid. We're going to make a cooperation in which we all trust one another to outsmart the professor together, right? Continue. What else do you want to do in order to establish this trust and cooperation? How to do this? Contract. We've had one successful strategy so far in order to ensure cooperation. I had a winning strategy over here where you insisted on fairness, saying if somebody else gets more money than I do, I'm going to outbid them, right? So you can enforce with the group, we're going to say, anybody who deviates, we're not going to be your friends anymore, right? It's going to be a punishment from the entire classroom. Nobody's going to talk to you. So you can do all sorts of things in order to establish cooperation, right? So you can outsmart the professor. You can outsmart this game. There's always all sorts of ways, strategies that you can do in order to win this game. Yeah, makes sense? Any reflections? Now, let's say that you're an experimenter. Now that you've seen people care about fairness, trust, cooperation, Nash equilibrium, selfish versus the group. Now, as an experimenter, what do you want to test? Let's say that we want to come up with a new experiment. We want to understand how to study people and how people make bids in these kind of scenarios. What kind of interesting directions would you take this? Yes, please. Personality test, like what? You really want to give him one, right? Yeah. What would you give him? Psychopathy? No? Dark traits? Narcissism? Yeah. Okay. But maybe he cares about cooperation, so maybe it's pro-social. Maybe he's more pro-social than all of us. So how many scales do you want him to fill after class? Okay, personality traits. So we want to understand how different people react to this kind of thing. That's a good direction. Anything else? Okay. Hmm. Interesting. So what I can do is that instead of all of you coming in, sitting down, and then me explaining the game and all of you participating in this game, what I can do is as you're walking in, I separate you into two different classrooms, randomly assign you into two different classrooms. In one of them, I run this game, and in the other one, I run manipulation, an intervention, where I change one parameter of the game, saying, for example, emphasize cooperation. And then I see what happens in one classroom where there's this game, and the other classroom where there's the intervention. So everything aside from the one sentence that you added, everything is the same. And because of this random assignment, half going to this classroom, half going to that classroom, we're supposedly controlling for the noise. So everything is supposed to even out, whether they're personality like this or like that. If it's random assignment and there's a large enough sample in each of these two classrooms, then everything evens out. And the only change is that change. And then we can compare the two classrooms to see what kind of behavior. And then we can compare the differences, and then we can get some insight. So in this case, the independent variable, the intervention, is the manipulation where I separate you into two different classrooms, and I manipulate one little factor by adding one sentence. And the dependent variable could be something like highest bid. It could be how many people bidded, or the intervals between different bids. So you can look at different dependent variables in that sense. So as you're thinking about how to do intervention, as we're going through these experiments, I want you to try and put the experimenter hat on, scientist mindset, and think, what can I manipulate? And what is the best way to manipulate these things? What kind of an experiment did I run over here? So we had two scenarios where I did a manipulation. I changed something where I changed the second highest bid. Not a random assignment, but I do have two scenarios, and you all participated in both of these scenarios. What is this kind of experimental design called? The previous one that I mentioned with two different classrooms and random assignment is called a between subject design. One goes either here or there. Here, it's a different kind of design called a within subject design. So all of the participants are exposed to all of the conditions. And then we can see what kind of different behavior is happening as a result of these two. The best would be is, for example, to do this when we do this online, is like if we have different scenarios, is that we randomize the order of these scenarios. But we couldn't do this here, so the order is fixed, but we can already see that there's some big differences in behavior. And then we can say the differences in behavior is what is the result of the change of this manipulation. However, there's all sorts of problems with that. What is the problem with within subject design? Why can't we draw that the only difference between the two scenarios is this one? One is order, within randomized order. What else? You're much smarter in the second one, right? Yeah, you've learned some stuff. You've contemplated. You had a chance to discuss this. You've learned something new, and then you implement this in your other bid. So it's very difficult to disentangle in a within subject design. So sometimes the ideal design is a between subject design in order for us to, why would we always do a between subject design? Why not always split into two different, randomly assign into two different and then random manipulation? Why sometimes do we do a within subject design? And participants. So if I have a group of participants, what would it be better for me to run all of them in two scenarios rather than split them apart into two different samples? Yeah, so let's say that I do random assignment. Like it's something that I randomized. So it's not like order of people coming in. A random assignment is supposedly supposed to average all the difference between them. Or do you have a different concern? You're saying there's some other difference between the two sub groups in the participants, right? You're concerned about differences between the two groups. Oh, okay. You want them to learn something. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Good. You want to say something? So let's clarify. When you say cheaper, what do you mean? Just like let's break this down. Oh, I see. You mean that we might, need a double of the sample in order to run the same kind of experiment. If it's a within design, we just run the same 40. If it's between design, we need 40 in each condition, and therefore 80, something like that. Okay. Sometimes, most of the time, this is completely true. But for example, I run a lot of experiments online, and I pay by the minute, and that means that within subject design, actually, I need to pay them almost as much as I pay with a between subject design, because they need to do each scenario twice. So I need to double the money paid for the entire experiment. Let's say that you have my problem. So let's say that the money is about the same in a within subject design and a between subject design. What other benefits are there to using a within subject design? So we heard one such example. What other reasons would you have? Yeah, please. So I think she tried to touch a little bit of differences between the two groups. Sometimes you want to have the entire group together doing the same kind of thing. Yeah. So controlling for every possible differences there might be between these two groups, even with the random assignment. Yeah. Generally, and this is a little bit of a statistical angle to this, but sometimes we consider something called power, and it seems like within subject design, study design, tend to have more power and an ability to detect an effect. Depends on a lot of factors, depend on a lot of things we need to control, but generally this is one of the reasons to do this. So sometimes when you read your articles and you're trying to understand why did they use a between subject design, or why did they use a within subject design, sometimes they tend to go for a within subject design because this gives them more power for same or lower amount of money. Plus, of course, we can, the more that you run this, the more that you have interactions, 2 IVs, 3 IVs, it gets more and more expensive to run a between subject design. Interactions are very difficult to detect in a between subject design. So you can do a lot more, within subject design. You can run a small group of people. Here, for example, I'm limited by you, right? So if I have 20 participants and I split this into 2 groups of 10, I'm not going to be able to detect anything. This is the tricky part about me running between subject designs in this classroom, because the ability to actually detect something is very, very small. We need a very large effect size. We have 20 and I'm limited by this 20. I can't just bring new students in here. We are who we are. Sometimes within subject design seems to be the optimal one, which is why I opted for this. Sometimes it's about we can't split the classroom, so we have to run this on ourselves multiple times. Is that clear? Within subject design, between subject design? Just so you understand, when you look at interventions, there are 2 ways to doing this. And sometimes you need to consider very carefully the ups and downs of each one of those designs. Any questions about that? Something you want to clarify or follow up? All right. If we try to bring this back, so game theory, we talked a little bit. Perhaps this related to game theory. I tried to find some cartoons. So Katie Milkman posted this on her Twitter. And I thought this is really interesting. So I don't know why the woman is doing the shopping and he's, I don't know. There's a lot of things going on in this cartoon, but let's just put all those aside. So she's holding a lot of stuff. I know I should have gotten a card, but I just can't give up now. Trying to hold it all together where things are still falling. So even though I think in the second bidding, both of the participants in 130 and 200 knew that they're losing and that each one of them is going to override the others, they couldn't stop because they've already invested something in it. So they've already started. There's already something that they've lost that they needed to hang on to. In this case, it's something as simple as time. So she already lost the time, so now she's not going to go get another card. Now she's going to waste some time. Might as well go with this all the way. This is a classic article that came out in 72, I think. Can't remember exactly the year. Called the dollar auction game. You're welcome to look this up and perhaps run this in your various societies. It's very interesting to see what happened in this game. And almost every time, I definitely win. Sometimes I win a lot of money. So it's interesting to go about this. And there is game theory involved here, and the word regarding escalation. So we did quite a few of studies on escalation of commitment. Some people call this the sunk cost fallacy. So escalation of commitment verified that escalation of commitment situations involve there are sunk costs. Sunk cost means that you've already invested something, and then there's an indication that the investment was bad. So you've made an inaccurate assessment regarding what the outcome is going to be. You put some money, things are not going well, and then you're surprised by this. And there is an opportunity to withdraw, stay, or invest more. And this is classic in a lot of situations. So there's some really interesting academic articles about escalation of commitment and what happens when you've already invested emotionally, in terms of money, in terms of time, in a certain direction that is very difficult for you to see what the other options are. So it's very difficult to let go of sunk costs. It's very difficult to overcome the feelings of personal responsibility, and we tend to rationalize our irrational behavior. So if we try and think about this for a bit, what would be a good way for us? Let's say that we're managers, or we're in a relationship, and we want to de-escalate. We want to make sure that we're not escalating our commitment. What could be good ways to overcome escalation of commitment? How to protect ourselves from this kind of bias? So breaking this down, looking at all the costs, and then maybe you'll be able to make a rational decision about that. Based on what I know from the literature, people are incapable of doing that. And even when we try to get them to do that, there's a big problem. Actually, sometimes it creates an even bigger commitment because people are very difficult. They have their focus. So they're focused on something very, very specific, and negative feelings tend to reinforce one another. So just generally the feeling of letting go of something and restarting afresh is a big problem. So us doing this alone with ourselves seems to be the source of the problem here. So thank you. Very good prediction. Yeah? The outside of this, terrific, yeah? Yeah, terrific. So perhaps one of the ways to overcome ourselves is by adopting somebody else's perspective. So let's give an example for you. Like who would your outsider be? Who would you trust to be rational in this case? Your best friend. Okay. Good. So that's one strategy, but this still falls into the trap that we're stuck with ourselves and we're very limited in our capacity to take somebody else's perspective. But this is already one step further that might help us in this direction. What else can we do? Let's go even further than that. Terrific. How to protect yourself, how to know what is the critical moment. So this is important for all sorts of things in life. Just a second. So I'll get to you in a second. I just want to even expand this. So not only relationships, not only project management, but at some point, hopefully already now, but if not when you're hired, then you will get into an organization. You will earn some money and you will need to make financial decisions. How much money to put into a financial investment and when to know when to take out the money, given all sorts of things that are happening. So for example, you put in money into something, but then COVID happened, or something happened in the world, the Ukraine war happened, and then things are going down. How do you know to protect yourself from should you take out the money now or should you wait? So think about these kinds of directions. So saying that we need to be careful both ways. We need to be careful both in terms of when do we come in, when do we go out. Sometimes you don't want to go out too early. Because if, for example, you take out your money when the market is down, you're going to lose a lot of money. Where if you pay and you wait and you take it the long-term perspective of 5 to 10 years, markets overall tend to balance out and then you might get your investment again. So it's a very good point that you need to protect yourself from both ways. Having said that, do you want to contribute something? Excellent question. So what do we learn? When we lose in a game like this, escalation of commitment, when we have both problems of when to join and when to leave, not leaving too early, we have all these problems, but we are learning something. What are we learning? One thing that we've learned that we talked about is that we need to protect ourselves. Protect ourselves could be by external outsiders. It could be that we simulate this outsider. It could be that we're telling somebody else, you need to take care of me. If you see that I'm failing, you're my best buddy. If you see something wrong, you take me out for a beer and you tell me, get out of this relationship. So you appoint somebody who you trust to take care of you. When you're making financial decisions, it could be, it doesn't have to be, and I don't recommend that, but I'm just generally saying you're a financial advisor at a bank who holds not only your money, but has years of experience with it and has seen markets ups and downs, could be the person who's protecting you. But you need to be careful because financial advisors also have incentive to make money off of you. So you need to make sure that these people have your best interests in mind. So a buddy is a good person to protect you. However, you also need to understand that buddy also has incentives. They also want all sorts of things, and they're also biased because they know you in a certain way. So sometimes people say maybe a therapist because they are more objective. They don't have anything. It's like, they're getting their hourly wage, but then they are protecting me. So maybe that sort of thing. But some people appoint outsiders, external ones that have your best interest at heart in order to make sure that you're protected. What else can you do if you don't have an external buddy or an advisor? How can you do this for yourself? To implement the learning, what can you do? You protect yourself. How do you do this? When you did your team contracts, you did a little bit of that. How? Drawing a line. You define the line. You're going to say, if the market is between this low point and this high point, I'm staying. If it comes to this low, I'm taking out. If it goes that high, I'm capitalizing on it, right? But you have to do this in advance, not when you're in it and you're experiencing all the emotions, and it's very difficult for you to see what are the real things to focus on. So difficult to make a decision where you're in the situation. That's why you need to make these decisions in advance. So when you just got out of a relationship and you're thinking, I should have done this much earlier, then you sit down with your journal and you're saying, next relationship, if this happens, I'm bye-bye. No more, right? This is what I want from my relationships. Now I know that this is what I need. If I don't have this, I'm going away, right? Good. So we've learned how to protect ourselves with this thing. I'll just add one more thing. When it comes to project management, and this is the reason sometimes I thought of implemented this in the teams, but generally I don't. I think the team should work in a group. But when we think about organizations, nonprofit and industry, for-profit, there's usually a boss. There's usually stakeholders. There's a board meeting, and they make decisions. And they feel personally responsible for these decisions. And then it's very, very difficult for them to break away from these decisions. So how do organizations protect the organization from people who will escalate the commitment to personally responsible projects? They rotate. So that's why a lot of organizations, including HKU with the deans, so a dean has to change every 4 years. Why? First of all, it's boring being a dean, so you want to diversify a little bit. But even more than that, you want somebody else with new, fresh eyes to come in and look at all the policies that have been implemented, to think clearly again, without the bias of, I made this, in order to take another decision. However, new people who come in also have incentives, unfortunately. And their incentives are, I need to show how great I am, right? So politicians, many times, when there's like elections and they come in, immediately they want to change everything. So everything has ups and downs. You as an organization Me as a course instructor, you want to think about the ups and downs and then think if you want to have rotations or not. Good discussion. So we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back and do a few more experiments. For the second task, because you have a lot of questions, this task is the task for you to ask questions to understand how to do experimental design. Because actually, in this kind of experiment, you can go wild. You can try all sorts of different things. But of course, I recommend that you keep this very simple in order for you to learn as much as possible. Because in the third task, I'll give you a scenario. I'll give you an experimental design. And I'll ask you to manipulate something within your domain. And that experiment, we are really going to run. So learn as much as possible from your second task so that you'll be able to do the best that you can on the third task involving real donation. Okay? Good. Just want to introduce these two to you. I think you know at least one of them. So we talked about Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize winner, economics. He's a psychologist, 2002. Wrote Thinking Fast and Slow. Not an easy read, but a very comprehensive read. Over 80, 85, I think already. Recently came out with another book with Konstantin, another person whose name I forgot, called Noise. Definitely a thought leader, created the whole domain of judgment decision making. Have you heard of Dan Ariely? Have you heard of this guy? No? So he has a number of books by now. Predictably Irrational is a much nicer, full of humor, really a nice read to take all that's in here and give this better to audiences. So Dan Ariely has a remarkable life story. I don't know if you can see this from here. You probably can't. But if you look at his TED Talks, and he has a lot of talks by now. He's a good communicator. This is good if you decide that you want to be an academic or behavioral scientist in some for-profit, non-profit organization. Very high-level read, very comprehensive. This is if you want to have some fun and understand what's happening in your life. And he has a few others like Dollars and Cents about how to make financial decision-making. Dan Ariely is a gifted communicator and plus a very prolific academic. I'll share with you, since we talked about fairness, not making any comparisons, but I'm just saying that in every class that I've had in the past 5-6 years, somebody brought up the issue of fairness. What is happening with fairness? Why is it important to bid the 100 Hong Kong dollars over the 90 so that nobody else gets it if I don't get it? And I really like this illustration that came out from the animal world. Have a look at what monkeys do when they face unequal pay.
To be right.
Got it?
Is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber, and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again.
Yeah, so it's an interesting illustration of how much we care about equality in our lives. So that kind of sums up escalation of commitment, bidding, Nash equilibrium, fairness, sunk cost, and all of that. And now we'll move to an experiment. So in your sheets of paper, you have experiment 2, which is actually experiment 2. So think about that. and make a decision about the two scenarios. Yeah, assume for the sake of the experiment that you like wine very much. Yeah, so we've got a wine scenario and a movie scenario with VIP seats. So consider this, write it down. And you know what, since we're already in the movies, let's do also experiment 3 about the popcorn choice. If something is not clear, then tell me, ask me questions. And while you're answering this, try and think, what is the experiment here? What is going on? So you're participating in classic experiments from Dan Ariely and Daniel Kahneman. All right, so now that you've made your choices, I do want you to go on the Mentimeter and help me out, but the Mentimeter kind of reveals the experiment. All right, so as some of you have already seen, on your piece of paper, there's actually a letter on the top. Some of you got version A, some of you got version B. So what am I doing here? I've basically split you into 2 different classrooms, classroom A and classroom B. So I've randomized the design of who gets A and who gets B, right? And now you'll notice that in version A, let me just show you the experiment. Yeah. So version A, this is what the version said. Imagine that a decade ago, you purchased a case of good wine. Now you're considering that you purchased the wine for $5 per bottle a decade ago. How much would you be willing to sell it per bottle now in US dollars? Those who received version B received something different. Instead of you, it's a wine merchant. Imagine that a decade ago, a wine merchant purchased a case of good wine. Now, considering that the merchant purchased this for $5, a decade after, how much would you be willing to pay for that? Okay, so now I'm asking you, based on your version and your version alone, only answer your version. Don't answer the other version. If you got the seller, answer the seller. If you got the buyer, answer the buyer. And then we'll be able to hopefully compare the two. Now, if we look at this experimental design, now that you understand a little bit more about experimental design, what is the experiment here? What am I trying to test? Let's start with what's equal. Between the two scenarios, what is equal? What did I hold constant? The $5. That's one thing. What else? Yeah, decade. $5 and a decade, right? And, sorry? Yeah, we don't know that. So that is the dependent variable, right? So there's 2 people. There's a buyer and there's a seller, right? So we have the money, we have the 2 sides, and we have the time that elapsed since then. What are we manipulating? The perspective, whether you're the owner of the wine case or whether you want to be the owner of the wine case and somebody else is the owner, a wine merchant, right? So what could be a good prediction from this? This is something called the endowment effect. Very classic effect in economics. In psychology, it has a slight twist to it. So it's called the mere ownership effect. And what they're trying to show here is that people tend to value what they already own as being higher value. Okay? So looking at these 2 conditions, what would you say version A or version B is higher? Which version is higher? A is higher. All right, so we'll look at the experimental design here and see. But generally, in version A, those who were sellers estimated after 1 decade from $5 to about 27 US dollars, 28 US dollars. And this is about double of what it means to be the value that comes as an owner versus the value that comes, the estimation that comes from a buyer. Now suddenly if somebody puts something here, these 2, people who really love wine, but it seems like it didn't change the ratio so much. Okay? Do you understand the result? Do you have questions about the result? So what we're doing here is what we refer to as a replication, a live replication of a between subject design. I've split a very small class into even smaller subgroups, A and B, in order to see whether I can detect effects between version A and version B. And here it does seem like the effect is almost double for seller versus buyer. Now, how do I know that I've predicted this in advance? How do I know this is a replication? So Dan Ariely did something really nice called Irrational Game. It's a nice deck of cards. He actually did this as a Kickstarter, which I helped support. So he was aiming for an initial sum of money, saying if I get to $50,000 US, then I can run this. So he got way beyond that, and now you can actually go and purchase this. It's a nice activity. Unfortunately, this was done a while ago, and some of the cards now don't replicate, which is why I care and I show you cards. But now I want to show you, at least for this one, the two cards. So it's one card, but it has two sides. And then one person asks the other and gives options. So this is the experiment, and these are the possible outcomes. Please tell me which one you think is the outcome. And then the other person has to guess. And then that's how you win points, whether you're able to predict, which is a little bit like what we're doing in this classroom. So we make predictions, and then we see if things worked out or not. It's a little bit small, so I'm going to help you read this. Plus, I did not do a good job of scanning this. Market for mugs. Some participants were given a mug and then asked how much they would sell it for, while other participants were given money and asked how much they would pay for a mug. And this is a mug that represents the university, so students really care about this. I think it was Duke University, that's where Dan Ariely is. So based on the selling and buying prices, the participants named, how did the mug owners value their mugs relative to mug buyers? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. In one, it's as much for sellers and buyers. Mug owners value their mugs as less or more, or mug owners saw no value. And the answer is mug owners value their mugs more than mug buyers did, which is successful replication in our classroom to show support for this. Bonus, how did mug buyers value the mugs relative to mug owners? And you have about the same price, about half the price, a third of the price, fourth of the price. Just before the last outliers, we had about half, and then it shifted to about, I don't know, 70% or something like that. The experiment that they ran with the mugs is about a third. So you can look at a classic study that they ran an experiment, design something very similar. So I adopted their design with mugs to our design here in the classroom with random assignments, telling you if you're buyers or sellers of wine, right? Now, let's say that I want to improve my design. What would you change about my design? About the two versions, A and B, that you saw. What's interesting for you? What would you like to manipulate or do better than I did? What are some of the difficulties with the scenario running this in the classroom? Yeah. A specific one. First, change Mentimeter to something else, or change the scale in Mentimeter. Okay, good. What else?
But
Yeah, let's ask how many of you drink wine. Some of you do. How many of you don't like wine? Yeah, some of you. Yeah, okay. So definitely we need to take this into consideration. What is the problem with telling people, imagine that you like wine? So those of you who did not like wine, how did you feel looking at this? Imagine that you like wine. What did you do? If I were to run this again and I want this to work better with you, what would you change? First, change wine to, let's say what? Something that we all love. It doesn't have a legal age limit. So really need to consider the target population, yeah? Yeah. Currency. So instead of US dollars, use Hong Kong dollars. Okay. So how much money you're making? Okay. Yeah. That's terrific. Actually, that's another thing that we can manipulate. If we care about status, that's something that we can manipulate. Or we can add this as a covariate. For example, we can ask people, how much money are you making? And then see if this is kind of interact with how people answer this. But thinking about people's socioeconomic status is very important. Actually, when we ran this with the wine, we differentiated between wine experts, and I think wine experts in the article was people who drink more than 3 bottles a year, which I think most of my expat friends is like nothing. They finish this in a week. So experts in wine is 3 bottles a year. Okay, so you would want to change the definition of what is a wine expert, but we actually measured all sorts of other things in our replication and extension. So we not only measured how the original article did this, but we actually added some other measures for what is a wine expert. So what was the last bottle do you recognize these brands? All kinds of things in order to see. The social economic status is very important. Terrific. So various factors in the individuals that might affect things. Currency, definitely. Yeah, and the target sample. You know, we want to do this about something that we care about. Maybe most people don't care about wine. Or one thing that we can do, we can say, so for example, if you run an intervention and you're telling me we want to do something with wine because this helps the greater good and we can do some good in the world if we study this on wine. I'm like, terrific, but I'm going to make sure that the participants who are answering this actually have some experience with wine. So I have a filter. And when I do things online with labor market, I can actually filter for, are there students? Do they drink wine? Are they Republicans or Democrats? So you can tell me, we would like to focus on this kind of sample. So that is okay. Then we can discuss how can we generalize from this into the greater community. Okay, terrific. How about the movie? What do you feel like was happening with the movie tickets? Oh, actually, I have a video for you. Yeah, so before we go to the ticket, actually, let me show you the video. I like the person who is doing this. His name is Adam Grant. He has an amazing podcast. He writes amazing books. He's in Wharton. Definitely one of our thought leaders. Does terrific stuff. But I think with this one, it's called Why Are People So Stupid? That's not the way to look at irrational decision making. Even the phrase irrational is very controversial. So look at this, but then consider that perhaps this title is a little bit demeaning. Let's not do that to our participants, especially when they appear on TV, showing up for our experiment.
Would you sell your lottery ticket for twice what you paid for it, or would you be too worried that you were already holding the winning ticket? This is Why Are We All So Stupid?
The show that explores the cognitive biases that lead us to make irrational decisions.
I'm Sarah Silverstein.
And I'm Adam Grant. The endowment effect is about what happens when you own something and how much more you value it than you would have if it didn't belong to you. When you own something, you start to identify with it, and you take it a little bit into your sense of who you are. And so if you're going to part with this, if you're going to give it up and lose it, well, now you really have to, you have to pay me to give away a tiny piece of my identity.
Streets of New York to try to buy people's lottery tickets for more than what they paid. How much did you spend on it?
Only $1.
Could I buy it from you for $2?
No, I'm trying to win. I feel lucky. $2 is not a profit.
Could I buy them from you for $4?
Why?
Would you sell me your lottery tickets for twice what you paid for them?
No.
Would you let me buy it from you for $24?
No.
Can I buy it from you for $10?
Sure.
Can I buy it from you for $2?
No.
Why not?
It might be my luck.
What? But you can buy 2 tickets.
No. I just want to keep it. Maybe I'm going to be the winner. I think this is the one.
$5.
Here, thank you.
$5, you got it.
Nope, because I have a better chance to win.
I'm willing to negotiate to $6.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just rebuy the same ticket because
Okay, well then you'll have to split the winnings with me if it's the same numbers. This is not the first time we've done this, but the results are always the same. Would you be willing to sell me your ticket?
For less than I bought it?
For more than you bought it. Would you be willing to sell me your ticket?
No, I'm not.
For $12?
No.
For $20?
No.
You haven't even heard my offer yet.
What if I end? You have $700 million?
Would you sell me your ticket?
No, I will not.
Would you be willing to sell that ticket to me?
No.
Can I buy it from you?
No.
For $4?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Deal.
All right.
Wait, do you want to take a picture of it first so you know if you sold the winning ticket?
Yeah?
Yeah. You should.
That's going to be horrible.
Could I buy it from you for $4?
No.
For $8?
No.
You haven't even looked at the numbers yet. You could keep $10 and buy $20 more.
They're random picks, and I'm going to take my shot. You got to be in it to win it.
I offered to buy people's lottery tickets for multiples of what they paid, usually starting with 2 times what they paid, but going as high as 8 times. 78% of people refused to sell me their ticket.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. First of all, in almost every real life situation, there is more than one thing going on. So it's not just about that. But even as she clarifies it for them, that they can actually, so she catches them exactly as they leave the lottery booth. You can catch them right after that and say, I'm going to give you double or 4 times or 8 times more so you can go and take that money and buy more lottery tickets to increase your ability to win. So even if what you're saying is true, they might actually increase that by taking that money and buying more lottery tickets. So they're trying to decouple that. However, I agree with you. So when people have this kind of mindset, and I think this happened with the last guy, they're saying, you know, you have to be in it to win it. Like, what is that about? You can just buy another one and you're in it. So sometimes people are just like so distracted by this stranger with a TV camera coming. Like, can I buy this for double? Like, they're like, why? Definitely, there's a lot going on over here. So lacking in external validity and a bunch of other things interfering. I completely agree. But it's a nice illustration. One point over here that we need to take into consideration, and I think this is a nice extension to this replication, is that she asked one person, do you want to take a photo of the numbers to know whether you're losing or not? And he said yes, which surprises me because most people would rather not know, because this can have devastating consequences if you learn that you gave your winning ticket to somebody for a bit more. So I thought that was a really interesting illustration. And just to give you like a sense of how far we went with this, so actually we conducted a few replications, but then impact of ownership on liking and values. So we replicated 2 out of 3. The merchant one that I just showed you is one that succeeded. So that went on pretty well with the wine merchant. And then we even did a meta-analysis on this. So we summarized the entire literature. We were able to find only 26 samples, unfortunately, but about 3,000 participants. And the effect size that we identified seems to be pretty large. So 0.57, that's a pretty big effect, especially with this kind of literature. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, it was just like a few months ago, finally accepted. So we know a little bit about ownership, and it's interesting to manipulate this. We did this on the psychology literature, but there's the whole endowment effect, endless literature within economics. So we didn't touch that, and there's a bit of a differentiation. But this is just to show that we've done a bunch of things in this domain. Okay, this is the one with the tickets. So what was this about? So this was previously, I ran this in with a US sample, but then in this one, I actually translated the currency to Hong Kong. So I moved this into 200 Hong Kong dollars. I don't know what you spend 200 Hong Kong dollars on a movie with, but I thought maybe VIP seats, right? You've got these like nice, comfy chairs, beautiful, like you've got your blanket. And now you can even bring popcorn and drinks into cinemas, like after 2 years. About time. So this is nice. I don't know if you've had this experience in Hong Kong, but it's really, it's a treat. 2 versions. What's the difference between these 2 versions? Yeah, you bought it and you lost it. So did you lose the actual ticket that you bought, or did you lose money equivalent of the ticket? Will you buy the new ticket? So I hold a lot of things constant. It's the same question, 200 and 200, right? Same situation, you arrive in the cinema. So what is manipulated over here? So this is actually also a Nobel Prize winning idea by Richard Thaler, 2017, who we discussed with Nudge. This we were able to replicate. What's your prediction? If we look at losing the amount of money, if we look at this one, what would people say in this kind of situation? What's the connection? So I lost $200, left my, how's this related to the ticket? I came to the movie cinema. I want to see a movie. Of course, I'm going to buy it. But what happens here? Here, people have decided in their minds, $200 have been spent on the ticket, and that has been lost. Now, I can't afford another $200 Hong Kong dollars to spend on a ticket. And a lot of people who would, went all the way to the cinema, did all of that, would not be willing to buy a new ticket. So between subject design, version A, version B, and then seeing, whether there are differences in the way that people would do this. And I think over here, once again, we've got the Dana Rieli irrational cards. So in one scenario, you bought a movie ticket for $10 US, that are falling out of your pocket on the way to the theater. Second scenario, you have not yet bought a ticket, but you found that you have lost it. And what percentage of people in each scenario would buy the ticket? About half of those. And we've replicated this both in experimental design with online labor markets and with HKU students. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that would lead to the opposite prediction, right? So they're more likely to purchase it because they've already committed to that by buying the actual ticket. Yeah. So we can think about like the reasons. So you're saying because they've already committed and put money into it, they're more. So you're connecting this to like a sunk cost fallacy sort of thing, kind of. Yeah. So it's interesting. So it's not what we're observing here, but let's say that we want to test it. So this is terrific because you're raising an alternative hypothesis, and now we're experienced experimenters, and we want to test this. How will we test this? Let's do an experimental design to address the issue of, is this commitment, or is this, that's called mental accounting. I have an account for this, and I have an account for that. I've already spent what I wanted for the movie account. Therefore, I will not do that. Any suggestions for an experimental design? Yeah. Perfect. Terrific. So you're actually manipulating the pre-commitment to the ticket. So you add an additional condition where you manipulate that sort of thing. So instead of two condition IV independent variable, add a third condition where you manipulate whether there was a commitment or not. Perfect. You had another? Yeah. It's fate. Yeah. Somebody's telling me from up there that I'm not supposed to watch this movie. That's really interesting. So how would you test that? How would you adjust the experimental design? You really like individual differences, right? So what would you ask? What scale would you give people? Maybe, or you can have something a bit more specific about fate, right? Fatalism, right? Or even ask people, is like, what is the reason over here? That's less of an experiment. That's more of like a correlational design. That's one way of getting something. So I love these two extensions because you're taking something here, you're saying, but wait, I don't know if this is really what's going on over here. And then you're adding a condition or you're adding an individual different predictor. Perfect. So this really shows that you're putting on the scientist hat and you're trying to understand what is going on over here. But at least with this kind of thing, we've been able to replicate this quite a few times in different designs. Let me think. We have enough time for experiment 3. Oh yeah, we did this already. So what's happening in experiment 3? Compare experiment 3 to the person next to you. What did you see? These two. What's the difference between these two? In version A, we've had 2 popcorns. And this is actually, we used to have a marketing person sitting on the side and telling us their marketing perspective. This happens a lot. If you go to, even Starbucks over here does this with their Venti, Grande, and all that. This is very tricky stuff because we don't see both versions. We see just the manipulated version. And sometimes we're like, who is going to buy a Grande? It's actually, if you don't want to like, so here, if you don't want a lot, maybe the person you're going to the movie theater with is not a big popcorn fan. You go for the small. If you both want to have a bowl and you get the large, so what's the big deal? What happens here? What happens in version B? The medium one makes absolutely no sense. Why? Might as well just get the large, right? It's exactly the same kind of money. Why is it there? It makes the large one seem a lot more attractive. This is called the decoy effect. You add an option that makes absolutely no sense just so people will go and buy the large one. And you can see this in all sorts of things. If you go to a supermarket, I don't know, convenience store, sometimes there's an option there. This shampoo, who's going to buy this? This makes no sense because it costs so much more than the other thing. And it's lower value. It doesn't give me anything. There's no branding whatsoever. What is it doing over there? Sometimes the reason things are on the shelf is just to get you to buy the thing that's next to them. And this is manipulated all the time in all sorts of places. So decoy effect, very, very powerful, has a lot of implications. And you'll see this, especially in the movie theater with popcorn. They play along with this. Dan Ariely, in his book and his TED Talks, gives the example from, so this is an old example. I don't think if your generation would understand what is going on over here, but there used to be that economists had a print subscription and an online subscription as we were shifting. And then Dan Ariely noticed this. This is a screen capture, a real screen capture. If you want the online subscription, $59. Print, $125. Print and web, $125. Who's going to go for this? So actually, he ran an experiment. He saw something like this. He ran the experiment. And then he saw that actually MIT students, he ran this where he was in MIT, 0 went for this, and then 16 and 84. What happens when you take away the middle one? It reverses. So a complete shift in preferences just by adding one option that makes absolutely no sense. And people are willing to pay a lot more than double. Shifting just by adding something. So a lot of choice architects in industry where you go are manipulating us this way. So we are more on the side of trying to protect people against stuff like that. So always think when there's an option that doesn't make any sense, what are they trying to get you to do? So decoy effect, also very powerful. Okay. So hopefully the purpose of this session was for us to think about experiments, understand within subject, between subject, see some classic heuristics and biases from Dan Ariely and Daniel Kahneman, play a little bit with these and experiment on ourselves in order to get an understanding of the things that we can do in interventions in order to understand human behavior. Any questions? If you have anything that you want to ask about the task, I think it's a unique experience where you can get immediate feedback from me and the teaching assistant on Slack. Not a lot of groups have used that experience. Do that. We would love to try and help you. We don't have all the answers, but we will try and guide you to prepare you for the third task, which is a real experiment contrasting all of your designs. So good luck with the second task. Don't forget to do your midterm evaluations for your group mates, and I'll see you next week.